I want to focus on the young players, the young American players. You were part of that last golden era for American men's tennis. Every time you looked up, there was another great American who was making a deep run into one of the majors. When you look at, and it's been a long drought since Andy Roddick won the U.S. Open. We've had some terrific players, but haven't really cracked through that upper echelon. Some of that could be because we've had some players named Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic who have really dominated the top spots. But we're really starting to see, as that era comes to a close, it isn't closed yet, but we see Taylor Fritz with that magnificent win at Indian Wells when he's banged up. He beats Nadal. He's now, I think, 13th in the world. Reily Opelka is a top 20 player, and it feels like we've got this momentum now. What's your assessment of this young group of Americans?
Well, I will say we had Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer 30 years ago, 25 years ago. They just so happened to all be American.
Right.
And so, yeah, there were moments where I snuck into the top 10, snuck into the top 5 for like a nanosecond. It's pretty easy to look at my collective 31-9 the wrong way win-loss record against Pete and Andre combined. Okay, it's pretty easy to look at that and say, what if those guys wouldn't been around?
Sure.
I lost to those two in the 2 finals I made at the Grand Slams. If instead of them beating me 31 out of 40 times, and instead of them being 1-2 or 1-2 in the world, if I had relatively good win-loss records against them, and they were ranked 25 in the world, I would have been 40 in the world or 50 in the world. And I mean, they were better than me, but they were the best.
Yeah.
And that mattered so much. If Roger, Rafa, and Novak played under the American flag, Taylor Fritz would be even better than he is. Reily Opelka would be better than he is. John Isner would be better than he is. Tommy Paul, Francis Tiafoe, you name it, the bar would be raised. But I do believe over the years, we've gotten to a point where we're comparing ourselves to ourselves. There's no great kudos to being the #1 American tennis player.
Sure.
Now there's a better Twitter following.
Right.
There's more money in the bank account, but at the end of the day, the guys didn't grow up playing and thinking to myself, wow, there might be this thing called Twitter someday. I sure hope I'm #1 on the Twitter scale.
Right.
And kids understand money to a degree, but they're not learning and loving the game as youth in order to get rich. Their parents might. I really think that this general group of players, of young American players, has a disposition and a wiring that's a little bit different, a little bit more motivated, a little bit higher in their sights. At the end of the day, it's the sustaining of that excellence that
Sure.
will determine whether they're really successful. Taylor's had an amazing 6 months, and nowhere near as amazing as potentially his next 6 years could be. But that really depends on maintaining the focus that the high water marks are Novak, Rafa, and Roger. And if we look at it in a generational, through a generational lens, it's Tsitsipas, Medvedev, and maybe Alcaraz, Auger Aliassime,
Right.
But competitors need to understand that if they're really, really going to do it, they got to chase the best, not chase their neighbor.